Hey everybody, it's Kevin Carr from Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning and Movement is Medicine. And today, I'm gonna take you through my favorite lower body warm-up routine, the Lunge Matrix. The Multiplanar Lunge Matrix is a great lower body warm-up because it's quick, efficient, and it allows you to work on active hip mobility in all planes of motion. I use this with almost all of my clients after we form, roll, and stretch and before we start to get into our power and dynamic warm-up activities. What it's gonna compose of is a squat, a lunge position, a lateral squat position, and a hinge. And you can be creative in which versions you use, and I actually suggest that you progress through different versions while you work with the client to continue to challenge their motor control and motor patterning. So I'm gonna take you through now. I'm often gonna start with a squat variation. With a beginner, the squat variation I like to start with is just a squat with an anterior reach. This is a great way to teach a beginner how to squat because the anterior reach is gonna help them sit back and get into a good position, have them get into a normal squat position about shoulder width. Ball is gonna be at the chest. I want them to think, screw the feet in the ground, reach the ball out, and it's just gonna allow them to pattern that squat position, especially if you're gonna get into a lower body day when you're gonna be doing things like squatting, jumping, things gonna require them to be warmed up in this bilateral position. After they've mastered that squat with a reach, I suggest progressing them through different variations of the squat. As they're with you, maybe over time you add in a Zercher squat with a sandbag, an offset squat with a sandbag on the shoulder, an overhead squat with a stick over the head, or some other squat variation to continue to challenge their motor control and motor control mastery. From there, then I'm typically gonna go into a split squat, right? And so again, with a split squat, I'll have them start, if they're a beginner, in this bottom of the split squat position so they understand the positioning that we want. Their knee is underneath their hip, knee slightly over the middle of their foot, hands behind the head, have them come up and down. Typically of all of these movements, I'm gonna do, like 5 to 10 reps, okay? Just enough to start to get them warmed up, get their hips warmed up, get them loose, doing them on both sides. And then again, from there, continue to challenge that split squat or lunge position. Maybe after a few weeks, you progress to a reverse lunge, so it becomes more dynamic. Then you progress to a forward lunge, so there's more of a deceleratory component. Then maybe you do a walking lunge or a multiplanar lunge where you're lunging side to side to continue to challenge them in that same split position. Again, the warm-up is a great time to challenge people's motor control mastery as well as warm them up and just get them ready to train. Next, I would move into the lateral squat so we can start to work on some frontal plane hip mobility. So get them nice and wide. Most of our clients are gonna get too close, so make sure you really encourage them to get their feet out. You could use that ball for the anterior reach for this as well. I wanna see them squat laterally, reach those arms out. It's gonna help them keep their chest up, alternate sides, so they can really work on opening up their hips in the frontal plane. Most people never get their feet out this wide, so it's good to challenge them for some adductor mobility, some hip mobility, and lateral hip strength. Again, once they master this, find other variations. You can progress into things like a lateral lunge where they're stepping in and out, or even a rotational lunge where they're stepping at like a 90-degree angle to start to challenge them in other planes of motion. Lastly, I always like to do something like a single leg deadlift or regular hinge. You could start with a bilateral hinge like this. Great time for beginners, just teach them a hinge pattern if they've never done it before, get their posterior chain warmed up. Okay, cue them to think about pushing their hips back. Those elbows should go down about mid-quad, get up tall, finish strong with the hips. Maybe for a beginner who might be balance or stability challenged, that's a good place to start. Then I like to go right to single leg deadlift. I want to see them sink down in the knee, get as long as they can, come up tall, okay? Have them sink down, reach that opposite arm out, have them follow that gait pattern where they're moving their arms in the opposite direction. Again, about 5 to 10 reps each side. And then you can challenge it. Again, you could go a Zercher load where they're holding a sandbag at their chest. You could have them do a multi-directional reaching single leg deadlift to challenge their hip stability. As a coach, be creative in your warm-ups. Think about how you can challenge your client to the same pattern, but under different circumstances. And I encourage you, add in different things that you like. Sometimes I'll often add in either a push-up or a crawling variation of this to challenge their upper body and their trunk. Again, be creative in your warm-ups as a coach. Find ways to not only get them warmed up, but to challenge their nervous system and try to continue to progress your client's movement skills. That's it for this episode. My name is Kevin Carr. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe after watching the video.